Giving all praises to Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai by Hashem Harakakadash. I'm saying double honors to our apostles and elders here at Great Millstone. This will be number 22 of You Thought You Got Away. And in particular, we're going to focus on the CIA, which is known as a Central Intelligence Agency, which they consider themselves America's first line of defense. But what we're going to highlight here is their offensive tactics and deceptive means and ways of force to take control over the whole earth. Preface this by saying that this information was really brought to me because the elders was talking. In particular, the elder here, GMS Barack Allah, he shared this video which I'm going to play and hope that they allow me to play it because it's a free movie and it's a really good watch. It starts off at the beginning of them explaining how the US dollar even came about, and it basically goes into details of how the people of America and everybody else in the world who uses the American dollar is basically screwed. It was doomed to fail from the start, and they used the dollar as a way of a weapon to penalize other countries and to strip them of all their resources. And part of the government that had a helping hand, or part of the organization you could say that had a helping hand in overthrowing government for decades now, to prevent countries from removing themselves from under the clutches of America, which in the scriptures is known as Babylon the Great. It was the CIA. And you have these whistleblowers now, and you have this information coming out where everybody is able to point the finger, because we all know about the operations of Esau Edom. And like the elder kept harping on, because he did the same video, son of perdition, this man is the son of perdition. He is the wicked that's soon to be revealed. And the word perdition goes into destruction. Everything about him is just the epitome of destruction. So we're going to play the video, and I'm just going to highlight how the strength of these devils, these Edomites, their strength for the longest time was secrecy, which was to operate in the darkness. That was their secrecy. But so in order to lose that power, all that has to happen is for the light to be shed on it, and for it to be a common talk amongst the people, to link things together, to understand that clearly Babylon the Great, Esau Edom, so-called white man, was responsible for it. And the conversations all started was because the elders were speaking, and it was a video, TikTok they shared, basically about how the president of Iran died in a plane crash. But in the little video, it basically shows you can watch the elder's video, he plays it, but it shows you that how it was 6 assassinations, I believe, in the past 6 weeks. And if there's one thing they all have in common, is that all these countries stood against America and the state of Israel and spoke up against them. So that's no coincidence. So everybody's making the making the connections, and it's going to come back to the CIA, which is just another organization of the wicked that is used to oppress and be the hammer of the whole earth. And we're going to let this video play. And this, like I said, the elder is one that brought this video to our attention. Really good watch. I'm going to play at least 4 or 5 minutes of it. Hopefully they let it stick. It's basically a movie. It's a free movie on YouTube, so we'll see. If they don't, then oh well, I don't mind if it gets clipped or whatever the case is. I'll just do it another way. But typically when it comes to copyright, they either do one or two things. They can either just claim any revenues that you would have on the video, which we don't, so it'll be fine. Or two, they may want to be the sole provider of the information and ask it to be taken down or blotted out. But so we're going to see. But he's going to open up with the economic hitman, which is a term used in the CIA. And as you can see, this caption here, it says, from John Adams, there are 2 ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One is by the sword, the other is by debt. And we're going to talk about both the sword and the debt to show you, like the elder continuously harps on, we must harp on, this is all prophetic. This is all prophetic. For a while, this devil was supposed to rule and conquer the nations with violence. But in the end, it's all going to blow up in his face, and it's all happening as we speak. And just the revealing and the revealing of your enterprise and the exposure of the workings of the CIA is proof that their power has faded. Their power has faded. And we're going to make connections dealing with the Roman Empire.
We economic hitmen really have been the ones responsible for creating this first truly global empire. And we work many different ways. But perhaps the most common is that we will identify a country that has resources our corporations covet, like oil, and then arrange a huge loan to that country from the World Bank or one of its sister organizations. But the money never actually goes to the country. Instead, it goes to our big corporations to build infrastructure projects in that country, power plants, industrial parks, ports, things that benefit a few rich people in that country, in addition to our corporations, but really don't help the majority of the people at all. However, those people, the whole country is left holding a huge debt. It's such a big debt they can't repay it, and that's part of the plan, that they can't repay it. And so at some point, we economic hitmen go back to them and say, listen, you owe us a lot of money, can't pay your debts, so sell your oil real cheap to our oil companies. Allow us to build a military base in your country, or send troops in support of ours to someplace in the world like Iraq, or vote with us on the next UN vote. To have their electric utility company privatized and their water and sewage system privatized and sold to U.S. corporations or other multinational corporations. So there was that whole mushrooming thing, and it's so typical of the way the IMF and the World Bank work, that you put a country in debt, it's such a big debt it can't pay it, and then you offer to refinance that debt and pay even more interest. And you demand this quid pro quo, which you call a conditionality or good governance, which means basically that they've got to sell off their resources, including many of their social services, their utility companies, their school systems sometimes, their penal systems, their insurance systems, to foreign corporations. So it's a double, triple, quadruple whammy. The precedent for economic hitmen really began back in the early 50s when democratically elected Mossadegh, who was elected in Iran, he was considered to be the hope for democracy in the Middle East and around the world. He was Time Magazine's Man of the Year. But one of the things that he'd run on and began to implement was the idea that foreign oil companies needed to pay the Iranian people a lot more for the oil that they were taking out of Iran. The Iranian people should benefit from their own oil. Strange policy. We didn't like that, of course. But we were afraid to do what we normally were doing, which was to send in the military. Instead, we sent in one CIA agent, Kermit Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt's relative. And Kermit went in with a few $1 million and was very, very effective and efficient. And in a short amount of time, he managed to get Mossadegh overthrown and brought in the Shah of Iran to replace him, who always was favorable to oil. And it was extremely effective.
Bombs overflow Tehran. Army officers shout that Mossadegh has surrendered and his regime as virtual dictator of Iran is ended. Pictures of the Shah are paraded through the streets as sentiment reverses. The Shah is welcomed home.
So back here in the United States, in Washington, people looked around and said, wow, that was easy and cheap. So this established a whole new way of manipulating countries, of creating empire. The only problem with Roosevelt was that he was a card-carrying CIA agent, and had he been caught, the ramifications could have been pretty serious. So very quickly at that point, the decision was made to use private consultants to channel the money through the World Bank or the IMF or one of the other such agencies, to bring in people like me who worked for private companies, so that if we got caught, there would be no governmental ramifications. When Arbenz became president of Guatemala, the country was very much under the thumbs of United Fruit Company, the big international corporations. And Arbenz ran on this ticket that says, you know, we want to get the land back to the people. And once he took power, he was implementing policies that would do exactly that, give land rights back to the people. United Fruit didn't like that very much, and so they hired a public relations firm, launched a huge campaign in the United States to convince the United States people, the citizens of the United States, and the press of the United States, and the Congress of the United States, that Arbenz was a Soviet puppet, and that if we allowed him to stay in power, the Soviets would have a foothold in this hemisphere, and that at that point in time was a huge fear on everybody's mind, the Red Terror, the Communist terror. And so, to make a long story short, out of this public relations campaign came a commitment on the part of the CIA and the military to take this man out. And in fact, we did. We sent in planes, we sent in soldiers, we sent in jackals, we sent everything in to take him out, and did take him out. And as soon as he was removed from office, the new guy that took over after him basically reinstated everything to the big international corporations, including United Fruit. Ecuador for many, many years had been ruled by pro-US dictators, often relatively brutal. Then it was decided that they were going to have a truly democratic election. Jaime Roldos ran for office, and his main goal, he said, as president would be to make sure that Ecuador's resources were used to help the people. And he won, overwhelming, by more votes than anybody had ever won anything in Ecuador. And he began to implement these policies to make sure that the profits from oil went to help the people. Well, we didn't like that in the United States. I was sent down as one of several economic hitmen to change Roldos, to corrupt him, to bring him around, to let him know, okay, you can get very rich, you and your family, if you play our game, but if you continue to try to keep these policies you've promised, you're going to go. He wouldn't listen. He was assassinated. As soon as the plane crashed, the whole area was cordoned off. The only people allowed in were U.S. military from a nearby base and some of the Ecuadorian military. When an investigation was launched, two of the key witnesses died in car accidents before they had a chance to testify. A lot of very, very strange things that went on around the assassination of Jaime Roldos. I, like most people who've really looked at this case, have absolutely no doubt that it was an assassination. And of course, in my position as an economic hitman, I was always expecting something to happen to Jaime, whether it be a coup or assassination, I wasn't sure, but that he would be taken down because he was not being corrupted. He would not allow himself to be corrupted the way we wanted to corrupt him. Omar Torrijos, president of Panama, was, one of my favorite people. I really, really liked him. He was very charismatic. He was a guy who really wanted to help his country. And when I tried to bribe him or corrupt him, he said, look, John, he called me Juanito. He said, look, Juanito, I don't need the money. What I really need is for my country to be treated fairly. I need for the United States to repay the debts that you owe my people for all the destruction you've done here. I need to be in a position where I can help other Latin American countries win their independence and be free of this terrible presence from the north that you people are exploiting us so badly. I need to have the Panama Canal back in the hands of the Panamanian people. That's what I want. And so, leave me alone. Don't try to bribe me. It was 1981, and in May, Jaime Roldos was assassinated. And Omar was very aware of this. Torrijos got his family together and he said, I'm probably next, but it's okay because I've done what I came here to do. I've renegotiated the canal. The canal will now be in our hands. He just finished negotiating the treaty with Jimmy Carter. In June of that same year, just a couple of months later, he also went down in an airplane crash, which there's no question was executed by CIA-sponsored jackals. Tremendous amount.
That's just a brief. It's a good watch. I'll put it in the description. So this is what they do, man, and this is all under the power of the fourth beast. These countries, in particular, like we were talking about South America, like he was primarily talking about, even in Iran, these countries set up leaders And those leaders have one interest, and those interests is to be isolated and for those people to be free, and for their countries to be run and dictated by them, and for debts to be paid back from Babylon the Great, which is America, and land that was stolen. But what does the CIA do? They send down what they call economic hitman, which they have one agenda, two agendas. Really, the first agenda is to try to put them in debt, give them a loan, which that's why that dollar is a snare. They get in these heavy loans, they can never pay them back. So then they could say, okay, well, guess what? Just sell me your oil and sell me all your natural resources. Give us control over parts of your land and your sovereign land and all your natural resources and your natural energy resources. So then, just that fast, now you're under the now your whole country is under watch, under the rule and controlled by Babylon the Great, which is Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. And if they refuse to take the money, then they just send in the squad. They use their sword to what? Put people to death, and then set up puppets to maintain their interest. Because the bottom line is they don't want you to be free. Just like when you read about during the time of Yahushua, you had a lot of Israelites who revolted because they revolted against the taxing, they revolted against being under Esau, Edom, and they all failed. And that's why Yahushua didn't resist the Roman Empire, which he could. He could have wiped the whole empire out. But he subjected himself to the order of the Heavenly Father because he understood that for prophecy's sake, the fourth beast, which is that Roman Empire, had to rule, had to fall and be reborn again by what? America and NATO and the EU by what? The Renaissance period, which the word Renaissance means rebirth. It was the rebirth of the fourth beast, as Revelation chapter 20 say, head wounded to death but was healed, came back into power for a little season. That is America. And that's why this fourth beast, he's going to rule by force, and he has to be on power all the way into the end. And that's why he's at his end now. And that's why no one on the planet was able to step to this man, and he had success in his evil workings. But now it's at an end because, again, his power was secrecy. So I'm just going to read Job 20 like the elder Barak Allah read. I'm just going to jump to the point at the end. This is talking about the destruction to the wicked and how the Lord is going to turn the tables on him in the end, which is happening now. The fact that we're talking about this in the open is proof that this man has lost his power. The book of Job 20 and 26. All darkness shall be hid in his secret places, a fire not blown shall consume him. It shall go ill with him that is left in his tabernacle. The heaven shall reveal his iniquity, and the earth shall rise up against him. So the whole world is going to see the iniquity of the devil who operates in darkness, and it's going to all be brought forth to what? To light. Even, I believe it was David Rockefeller, I uploaded it, but in 1990, he met up with some news outlets, and he didn't know, but one of the sentences that got leaked was his audio saying that we wouldn't be able to, he wanted to thank all the news press for their cooperation with the Rockefeller, in controlling the media. And he said we wouldn't be able to have so much success if everybody was in our business. Meaning, if we did all this in the open, if a lot of people was able to look at what we're doing, we wouldn't have success. So their power is darkness. Imagine how effective it would be for them to go over here. Next thing you know, the president of Iran or anybody that speaks against the state of Israel is their leaders got assassinated, and the whole world, the UN, all these countries can just easily say, we know who did that. That was Esau, Edom. That was Babylon the Great. That had to be a C.I.A. hit. Imagine how much power they would have. They wouldn't have that power. But that's why they're losing their power, because people are talking about it now. So indeed, the heavens shall reveal his iniquity, and the earth shall rise up against him. So eventually these people is going to have enough. The increase of his house shall depart, and his goods shall flow away in the day of his wrath. This is the portion of a wicked man from Yahweh, and the heritage appointed unto him by Yahweh. So before the devil goes down, he's going to be exposed. Isaiah 44, verse 24, one of my favorite scriptures. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, thy Redeemer, and he that formeth thee from the womb. I am the Lord Yahweh that maketh all things, that stretcheth forth the heavens alone, that spreadeth abroad the earth by myself, that frustrateth the tokens of liars, and maketh diviners mad, and that turneth wise men backwards, and maketh their knowledge foolish. So at any time, Yahweh Shem Yahushai, because he understands the works of the workers of iniquity, he understands the crafty, and at any time he can frustrate them by exposing their wicked deeds, by them leaving breadcrumbs where people can come back and see for them their skirt to be uplifted. That's what the Lord is capable of, and he's doing it as we speak. The book of Daniel chapter 7, verse 7. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and in it had great iron teeth. Now this fourth beast is talking about the Roman Empire. That's why the Roman Empire far exceeded the Babylonians, the Medes and the Persians, even the Greeks. And it fell, and then it was the devil was bound for 1,000 years, meaning Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, was unable to come back in power for 1,000 years. After the 1,000 years, he was released for a little season that began in the Renaissance period to what? Deceive the whole earth. And we're going to read how he still has the strength of that iron, because the Roman Empire ruled by iron, that force of the iron. And the teeth, the teeth of a beast is the strength. So the strength of the Roman Empire was his weapon, that iron. And America is the Roman Empire rebirthed again. What's his strength? The weapon, the iron. It says, it devoured and breaketh in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. It was diverse from all the beasts before it, and it had 10 horns. So it stamps, it crushes little nations. It crushes it with what? Its violence. And one of the strengths of the devil, of the son of perdition, is deceit. If one way doesn't work, he resorts to what? Violence. And that's how they've been so successful this whole time. The book of Daniel chapter 2, the same, it's not the same vision, different vision. One was a statue, the other one was beast, but it's talking about the latter end, which is the Roman Empire being rebirthed. Daniel 2:40. And the fourth kingdom shall be as iron, for as much as iron breaketh pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. So it's going to rule by the force of the sword, by the force of the iron, militaries, the guns, assassinations, craftiness. It says, and whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part potter's clay and part of iron, and that clay represents debt. The kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. It's partly strong and partly broken because of the debt that it's in, and partly strong because it still has the strength of the fourth beast, which is the strength of that iron, which is the strength of the sword, which was the blessing that Isaac gave Esau Edom when he said, by thy sword thou shalt live. So when you look at America and NATO and the EU, it's partly strong because it has the strength of the army, the strength of the weaponry, but it's also partly broken because it's in debt. America, Babylon the Great, is in extremely high debt. And part of their strength is to cause other countries to go in debt. The dollar is just the U.S., it's a debt note. All you got to do is read it. So that's why it's strong, but yet it's weak. The book of Job 5:13. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness. I'm sorry, verse 12. He disappointeth the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the forward is carried headlong. So you see, Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai sees all things, and he sees the craftiness of this devil, and he sees how they must have success for a long time, and he sees how their strength really was that secrecy, but he's taking that away from them, and he's taking the wise in their own craftiness. I think even George Bush, you can look it up. George Bush, is it called the Freudian slip? Where you accidentally tell the truth in your mind. You're trying to lie, deceive, but you accidentally tell the truth. He told the truth that he was responsible, for in Iraq for invading innocently under a lie. Just type in George Bush Freudian slip if I'm using that word right. But the Lord can make them do that. See? So, and I pulled this up. I'll read this real quick. The Romans, it says Rome's transition from republic to empire. Right? It says Rome transitioned from a republic to an empire after power shifted away from a representative to democracy to a centralized imperial authority, with the emperor holding the most power. Just to show you that this is also part of the image of the beast, which is the new world order. I'm sorry, the image of the beast is the Roman Empire. Today it would be considered the New World Order, which is what everything centralized. The CBDC are what centralized digital banking currency. Everything centralized, everything watched and governed and controlled by a small sect of people. And in the Roman Empire, it was done by the emperor, and that emperor today is the wicked elite. It's called control. It's the whole world under his power and his authority. He doesn't want people to be free. He doesn't want countries to be free, to have their ability to dictate what they do and give the land back to the people. He wants control, period. Complete control. He wants the whole world under his thumb. And if anybody opposes him, he's going to resort to his playbook, which is infiltrate, put in depth. If that fails, execute. Why? Because he wants complete control. That's what this whole thing about Iran is all about. Complete control to that oil access. And then he'll have the whole world in subjection. But he knows he needs to have access to that, because as long as oil is still used worldwide, if he can control Iran, which is where most of the oil comes from, majority of the oil on the earth, then he has the whole world under his thumb. But it's all prophetic, because Ezekiel 38 and 39 talks about how Russia is going to be in league with Iran, which are the Persians, and be a guard unto them. And it's going to lead and draw them to what? World War III, which is the Battle of Armageddon, which is the Valley of Jehoshaphat, which in the Hebrew is Yahweh meaning the place of the Lord's judgment, which is in the Middle East. That's why the book of Revelation 16 tells you that the angel poured a vial upon the Euphrates River, and it dried up to make room for the kings. And the Euphrates River is dried up. It's been dried up every year. And then guess what? Russia is building a bridge to have faster access to who? Iran. So it's all prophecy right before your face. So the article says, in response to Caesar's death, his nephew and heir Augustus defeated the conspirators. He established himself as the first Roman emperor. The Roman emperor dramatically shifted power away from representative democracy to centralized imperial authority, with the emperor holding the most power. For example, under Augustus' reign, emperors gained the ability to introduce and veto laws, as well as command the army. Right? So That's America being brought back. The power is being taken from the people, and everything's being centralized and controlled by the emperor, which in this case is the wicked elite of Esau, Edom, the international bankers. They want the whole world in subjection to them, and they're going to do so by bringing in the mark of the beast, which is that RFID microchip, and force people into eternal slavery because they want complete control over everything. I'll end it with Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 4. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith, his faith. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gather unto him all nations, and heaping unto him all people. So many people will say, that's so cruel. Why would the CIA do that? Why can't you just let these people have control over their own lands and what they want to do? Because the soul is not upright in him. He is the wicked. He wants to be God over the planet. He wants everyone in perpetual slavery and servitude under him. And because he was blessed with the sword, he's going to use that sword and deceit to obtain what he wants. And it's all prophetic because in him doing this, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua is revealing him completely and uplifting his skirt so that the whole world is going to be able to look and point at this man and acknowledge him as the son of perdition, the wicked, the man of sin, before he gets physically taken out of power. Verse 6. Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increases that which is not his? How long? To him that laded himself with thick clay. And that word clay means death. Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them? Meaning payback is coming. Alright? Because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, of the city, and of all that dwell therein. Woe to him that coveteth an evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. Thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people, and hast sinned against thy soul. For the stone shall cry out of the wall, and the beam of the timber shall answer it, or echo it. Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, and establish a city by iniquity. Behold, is it not of the Lord Yahweh of hosts that the people shall labor in the very fire, and the people shall weary themselves for very vanity? For the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord Yahweh, as the waters cover the sea. Woe to him that giveth his neighbor drink, that putteth thy bottle to him, and maketh him drunken also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness. Thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Lord Yahweh's right hand shall be turned to thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. For the violence of Lebanon shall cover thee, and the spoil of beasts which made them afraid, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land of the city, and of all that dwell therein. So it's because of the violence and the bloodshed, the evil covetousness, to set his nest on high, spoiling nations. That's why Yahweh Shem Yahushua is going to bring this man down. And part of his power was the secrecy. But now the world is knowing it, and this is a common talking point. It's so common that it's even, why do you think the plot of some of your most favorite movies all center around that plot of a what? Corrupt government. You got like what? The Bourne series, Matt Damon, one of my favorite series. You got Safe House, Denzel. What's the plot behind that? Corrupt CIA officials doing what? Executing operations in other countries, infiltrating assassinations, sending hitmans to do what? To so-called maintain the interest of the U.S. And they justify themselves by saying, look, we got to get our hands dirty if we're going to maintain dominance over the whole world, because we can't let these countries free themselves from our clutches. And your president is in on all of this. Okay? So Yahweh Shem Shah is revealing this man. He's going down. And this is just one of his enterprises that has been exposed, and the world knows it. And pretty soon this whole place is going to be burnt up by nuclear fire. With that, shalom.